Hello everyone, Spartan 5 again here today, bringing you guys another one of my Black Ops 2 commentary videos. And today I just wanted to give a little spiel about something that I've been thinking of for, today. And that's just basically about speaking your mind. Just saying the things that you want to say on the internet or on blogs or just out in public, just speaking your beliefs. Never really happens anymore. I mean, when you look on YouTube, you see so many people who are afraid to post up their beliefs about politics, about religion, about social issues, about, things going on in America, things going on in the world today, just overall, they don't like to speak their opinions. They just stick to what's happening in video games, what's happening in, internet world, everything like that, the safe zone, places where they're not going to get too much criticisms. Because in today's world, anytime you speak about religion, if you speak your beliefs, if you speak your political beliefs, what political affiliations you side with, you're going to get criticized. You're going to get, judged by people. You are going to basically get hammered down with a whole slaughter of negative comments. I mean, when you speak your, let's say, for example, I just go out and say, I'm a Democrat. People might go, yay, and then other people might go, oh, you're a liberalist, communist, you're terrible, No, I'm not democratic, at this point I'm not sure which political affiliation I side with, but that's besides the point, The example was, when you say, which political party you side with, you're going to have someone somewhere criticize you for saying that. And that really discourages people from saying what they really want to say. And it's not just YouTube. It's blogs. When people, let's, for example, a vegetarian. They're looking for advice from other vegetarians about, what kind of food they can make to get enough protein and nutrients and stuff for a, good diet. And then you might have some other, I don't know, some other Atkins diet fan, come out and just start dropping names and shit on that person, for being a vegetarian. Those negative comments really discourage people from speaking out and, letting people know what they think. And I see this as a really big issue. We're living in a country that's based upon the concept of freedom of speech, and yet I don't see that freedom being let out very often. Now, that's not to say that it's being repressed completely. It's just on the internet, in schools and stuff like that, it almost seems like, you can't let out the entire truth. I mean, when you go out in public, when you go out to school, when you're on the internet, you have to run your thoughts through some filters. You make sure that things are socially acceptable and that people won't get too offended. That's another thing that's erupted in our time of age. People are getting offended. Oh, you said that? I'm getting very offended by what you said. It's just, we're living in a world of softies. That's basically what's going on right now, And, I mean, sure, some things, yes, could be very offensive, and in, I'm trying to say here, like, good reason to be offensive, yes. But when it's, if someone says, they're a believer of evolution, or, they agree with the theory of evolution, and people say, oh, I'm so offended by that comment, they need to grow up, and they need to realize that other people can have different opinions than their own. And, the last point is, people, if something is not following their own opinions, like if someone doesn't agree with the conservative party, or if someone doesn't believe in creation, something along these lines, the other person is wrong, I mean, if someone says, I agree with the theory of evolution, and then a creationist comes along, it's like, oh, he's wrong. No, you're wrong because you don't believe in what I believe. We're very close-minded people, and there's knocking on my door. Hang on. That whole closing off of people's ideas, not allowing people to express their opinions, their beliefs, their new ideas. I see it as a major issue. We're not going to be able to progress as a society if we all just completely, bash other people for their ideas and say they're wrong and, other things like that. Random commentary, I know that, but something to keep in mind and think about, what kind of effects do you see this having on society if we continue to, you know, reject other people's ideas and stay very close-minded to our own ideas? You know, our ideas are right, other people are wrong, you know, because that's where I see just, you know, people in general on the internet, at least, you know, heading. In school, it's more of like, you know, you have to be politically correct and, you know, say what you think should be said instead of what your opinion truly is. But anyways, guys, that's about all the time I have here today. You were watching some other picture I'm throwing up on here. Thank you all for joining. Leave down your comments below. I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say. But anyways, I gotta go out to lunch. I'm hungry. I'll talk to you all later.